Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. I say video rather than tutorial this time. You're probably wondering as to the unusual title, because this video is going to include some self-promotion, something that I don't normally do. More inspirational than a tutorial. I will be giving some information out on the painting processes that I went through for this, but for me this was a painting failure, or not so much a failure, because if you're like me, you are, and like many other people I know who are into this hobby, you may be very self-critical. Now this video wasn't going to see the light of day. This was just going to be a binned project for me, and I thought, no, this is a brilliant opportunity. If this is the first experience for you of my channel, then I would recommend going and watching a few of my other tutorials and coming back to this one. So firstly, the self-promotion part. So we will just get this quick and out of the way so we can continue with this video in the background. There are a lot, as you probably know, there are a lot of people out there with their own Patreons monetizing their content, and that's just not for me. I fully agree with it. I think art in particular, painting, things as such, I think that's very undervalued, and I fully endorse people who want to do that. It's just not for me. A huge motivational factor for me doing these videos is helping for people, and I do not want to hide my concept behind paywalls. What I can do, however, is offer bonuses to those people who do want to support me, and with that guarantee monthly, fortnightly, and eventually even weekly content. I will also be offering access to a members Discord, monthly giveaways starting with this Magnus that you're seeing in the background, which we'll very shortly get on with some painting tips for, voting on new content and the tutorials which will come next that you want to see most, and also start to be part of a community that focuses more, as I always have done, on finding enjoyment from painting, not making it a chore, and bringing that life back into your hobby. So for those interested in that, I will drop a link below. Please feel free to check that out. Even if you're not interested in subscribing, any little helps to buying new supplies, giving me the motivation and really helping towards making more of these videos on a much regular basis. So without further ado, we'll actually move on to some painting tips for everybody. So as you see in the background, we have started on this model. This is just going with a wraith bone undercoat. Tell a lie, I did do a Zandri dust undercoat and then highlight this with wraithbone. I don't think it made enough of a difference to warrant me putting in the effort, and in some cases it actually muddied the colours a little bit. So I think in future what I would do is just use the wraithbone, unless I'm going for a very specific effect where I'd want that. I'd just be using wraithbone on this model, and we are just applying etherimeric blue all over the model. It is not mixed with contrast paint, contrast medium for those who saw me show the paints at the beginning. The contrast medium is on standby. The reason being is because we're painting such large areas of the model and we're giving it a very liberal coat as well, that what we need to do is we need to make sure that when it dries we don't get any staining, we don't get any edges. So what you'll see me sometimes do is get some neat contrast medium and then basically feather let those edges out whilst I move on to the next bit, just to make sure we're not left with any horrible staining as we move around the model and manipulate the paint. And as you can see here, what I am doing is we're going to get a lot of pooling as we go. I'm probably being a little bit overly liberal with this colour at this stage, and we're just making sure that we constantly keep going back to those areas at the tips of the wing. We want them to be darker anyway, and making sure that we manipulate that paint as it's pooling and redistribute it across the wings. So with that explanation in place, this is a large model, so it gives us some time to talk a bit more. as I did mention at the beginning of this video, that this for me quickly became a fail and then ended up surprising me. So I wanted to use this as best as I could as a motivational video. Now, one of the hardest parts of this hobby for me, still to this day, I used to be terrible for this, worse than I am now, but even to this day, is starting something. It's starting to not go the way I saw it in my mind's eye, and quickly starting to sour my mood and also get in the way of my creative outlet. And if I'm not enjoying this as a hobby, then why am I doing this in my free time? And at that point it becomes a very slippery slope of being an excuse not to paint, starting all over again, trying to get it perfect, and basically never getting anything finished. Just in the background here, whilst we started a new colour, this is just Volupus pink mixed with contrast medium, about 3:1. We want this really thin. It's a really strong pigment, this one. But as I was saying, yeah, basically putting us off what we want to do and paint a model. Now, I love the internet, I absolutely do. It allows me to do what I do and it allows me to give you these tutorials, but the darker side of that is that you get to see people work, you get to see the best of the best when you're looking at some competition painters, and you're striving for a level of perfection that you're not going to achieve, or very few of us can achieve, and can end up leaving you feeling a little depressed and having the total opposite effect on you as to what you were hoping to get from watching the tutorial. This is the reason that I try to leave my mistakes in my videos. I don't want them to be massively clean cut, massively edited, showing you the best of the best, and went a long way to giving me the motivation to put this tutorial up, even though for me it didn't go how I wanted it to, and give me the opportunity to do this video, put this online, show people that painting jobs, even for the best of us, I'm not saying I'm the best of us, but for people who you look up to, that mistakes happen for everybody. Things don't go right for everybody. So we're still using the Volupus pink in the background here, really thin, and we're just layering it on top of the 8th America blue. We're still using the same technique. We've still got some contrast medium neat on the palette, ready to blend this colour. And at this point I'm thinking we're already starting to get a nice effect. I can see where this is going to go in my mind's eye. I'm still happy at this point. And for those who are wondering, brush, I'm just using a large layer brush, are they called? Workshop one, the big standard brush. And we are not trying to be neat at all at this point. We're not worrying too much if we do get some stainage. We've tried to avoid it as much as we can, but it is not game over if we get some at this point. This is just basically a base coat, and we're planning on taking this an extra step further. Apologies on some of the camera angles on this video as well. This is the first large model I've painted. My setup is not ideal. There's some very big challenges involved with getting the right camera angles, getting the struggling to get the right light conditions to get this video done. But yeah, I'll try my best to keep that in check. do love the effect that this gives the watered down pink over the blue, leaving that really nice violet in between, which we'll work on even more. I do think that's a beautiful effect. So just using a 50-50 mix here of pale tan, green and contrast medium just to base coat the flesh, doing pretty much the same thing as we did in the Flesh Tearers video. Now this for me is where the first steps of the model not going the way I wanted it to. The flesh was way too dark for my liking. I will need to rethink about how I go about this, because as I say, I'm leaving this in here. I want to show everyone how I did it for those who like what I've done. But I'll be looking at a different way to do the flesh, because I'll be redoing this as a full-on Magnus tutorial again. And as you can see, just using the contrast medium again to blend these colours into them. Green and pink are colours that don't traditionally blend very well, but as you can see, it's so easy. The contrast paints are brilliant for this. It's so easy with very little effort to get really nice blends. Second concern I started to have that set in with this as well was painting it post assembly. This I normally paint everything post assembly, but with this model I would definitely paint it sub assembly, especially the armoured parts, as it does become difficult and frustrating to paint once it's assembled. Just using my Broken Toad. Yeah, Broken Toad number 1. Probably my all-time favourite brush. I am not endorsed in any way to say that, by the way. Just starting with a second coat of ethymeric blue on the wings here, and it's at this point that the wings do start to look really nice. And as you can see, to get a really nice effect, we still don't need to be really neat. We can really just sort of go with the flow here. We can really just sort of get stuck in, really enjoy ourselves with some paint. And as long as you use that feathering method just to get those harsh lines out when the colours cross over to blend, using the neat contrast medium, then you know we're doing good. Still being really liberal with this, so we're still needing to go back and forth, make sure we mop up any pooling. As you can see, we get a little bit of a mistake there where the paint pool's wrong. You can just mop that up really quickly, wipe it up with a bit of water if there's too much there. Mistakes are really easy to correct with contrast paints. So we start to add the Blood Angels red and blend it. For me, as I say, this colour was too strong. This is where I start to dislike the paint job, but we won't dwell on that anymore. Adding another coat of Lupus Pink. Also start to add another layer of Lupus Pink to the feathers. This is 1:1 with contrast medium. As you can see, these feathers are really coming together and starting to look nice now. These larger feathers here can actually still be quite liberal. They still don't need to be as neat as you would with conventional paint. The surface tension of the contrast paint does mean that you can effectively still put a nice blob of this paint in and it will still pool in the centre of the detail and leave that nice edge that we're looking for. I thought a little bit more saturation of blue was needed here where the crossover happens between the purples and pinks and the blues, so I used a little bit of watered down Talosar blue, 50-50 with the mix here, just to add a bit more blue saturation. And what we're doing here is we're just going back over these areas with the 50-50 mix of Volupus Pink and also the Etheric Blue, just going over the two colours, blending them both together until we get the desired result we want. Do this as many times as you want, whatever suits you. Now we're just adding Griff Charger Grey to the tips of the wings. As you can see, this really starts to bring out some details. Right, so that brings us to the end of this video. So this is currently where I am with this model. As you can see, I've done a little bit more work on this. Unfortunately, I haven't documented this. This was my first attempt at a non-metallic steel sort of look for him. And then the gold I'm going to use for the trimming will be the same method that I used on the Black Legion video. So as you can see, some parts turned out really good, others not so well. As I say, I will document the process. I do plan on doing this as a full tutorial. This non-metallic metal look that I have gone for was very rough, as I'd already, as I say, given up on this model and then pleasantly surprised myself with the colour choices, so that will look neater, and as I say, there will be a tutorial coming for that. And I hope that you have enjoyed the video, and hopefully we'll see you again for the next tutorial.